First of all, we want to describe this event to you. The event that are occurring in Ferguson, Missouri, heighten our need to have a community conversation in Wichita. This forum is an opportunity to have your voice, the citizens of Wichita, be heard concerning police and community relationships in our city, particularly as we are searching for a new police chief. We will now begin this meeting with a word of prayer invocation coming from Pastor Lincoln Montgomery, pastor of Tabernacle Church, Church Without Walls.
Obviously can't afford a suit, so I'm going to stand. If you would you bow with me? One of my prayers has already been answered. I pray not only for participation, but diversity. And I'm so thankful that every segment of this community appears to be represented here this evening. So again, Lord, we invoke your presence. And to invoke your presence simply means that we invite you to take your place at the head table. I'm a disciple of your prophet, Dr. Martin Luther King, and he instructed us nearly 50 years ago that we would learn to live together as brothers or we would perish together as fools. I would now, Father, that your peace, your presence, and your power would pervade this meeting, that you would give us then a spirit of wisdom and understanding, that you would allow us then to eschew, to forsake, to turn from those who would espouse violence, and that you would show us the pathway to peace, which is always through the mountains of justice. I pray now that you will again guide us in all of our thoughts this evening. In the matchless name of our Christ we pray and say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Lincoln Montgomery. As we continue, I am Kevin Harding. I am the pastor of Delrose United Methodist Church here in our community. We want to thank you again for being here. We're now going to have the purpose for being here by Mr. Mark McCormick. He is the executive director of the Kansas African American Museum. At this time, will you allow him to come at this time with the purpose?
There is an African proverb that says if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Remember tonight that the person that you demonize in one moment may be the very person that you need the most in the next moment to make progress on this issue. So let's respect our disagreements while finding the areas where we do agree. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. As we attempt to figure out what's wrong, let's be careful in characterizing the system as broken. Systems produce what they are designed to produce. Our system commodifies bodies, and that's been true from the peonage of the past to the prison industrial complex of the present. So hold open the possibility that the system isn't broken, but perhaps that it should be, and redesigned. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Realize also that this meeting alone won't resolve things. This is just the beginning. Though we're likely to lose some folks after Ferguson recedes from the headlines, once the protesters return to their lives, once the cameras disappear, we need to stay together. Dr. King said once that our national memory was only about 2 weeks long. But we need to hang in long enough to achieve the real change that we want, and that's going to take more than 2 weeks. If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. We can accomplish amazing things when no one cares who gets the credit. This issue is bigger than any individual or any organization. Leadership is an activity, which means anyone can lead. It just so happened that Kevin stepped up and created this event, but I'm sure that he and all of us here, including me, would support anyone's effort to create any subsequent symposium, and I'll be the first one there, because we want to go far and we want to go together.
I want to ask everyone out of respect for this room
form that if you have a cell phone, can you please place it on silence so we cannot be interrupted? And if you need to take the call, please get up, as we say at Delrose, and go into the North X. You gotta take the call. We don't want to hear what you guys cooking at the house. Please put it on silent. We are now getting ready to introduce to you the forum, our panelists today. I will begin today on my left, your right. We have the Mayor Carl. Give him a hand, the Mayor Carl. Our City Manager, Bob Layton, give him a hand. We have Deputy Chief Nelson Mosley, would you give him a hand? We have Carlos Contreras with Kansas People Action, give him a hand. We have Kenya Cox with NAACP, give her a hand. And we have the Reverend and Pastor Ruben Echols, who's also with Sunflower Community Action and New Day Christian Church. We have two stories that we begin this discussion. We were thinking about what is the negative encounter with a police officer and a positive encounter with a police officer, to let you know that there are both negative and positive encounters with our police department. And the first person who will give that story will give the negative encounter with the police department interaction. The story is by Pastor Ruben Echols, and he shall begin with that story. You can stand or sit down if you want to feel it.
So I can stand?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Don't give me that mic, boy. I just want to say to the families that have been affected by this issue, we say, God bless you. We're here with you, and we're trying to find answers, and we want to love you, tell you we love you, and we support you. At New Day, I have an office that sits in the corner of my church, and it's a pretty big office, and I'm rarely in it. I rarely use it. I use I use my car as my office. I got my phone and everything, and so. What I did use it for is actually for people who did not have homes, who couldn't find work. I had a family, a Latino family, stay in because their house got raided by ICE, and so they didn't have any place to stay. And I said, "But you can use my place in this office," and they stayed for months. I had young gentlemen who were coming out of the prison who couldn't find work, who couldn't find homes, and so I would give them the key and say, "You can use this place. I don't use it. You go there and you stay until you can find some place." And so one day I had I got a call from the police department about to hurry to the church because there was a young man who was breaking into my office. And I'm thankful to the police because they always would come and they would monitor the area. But on this particular day, as I went to the office, there was a young gentleman they had on the ground, and I saw them pick him up and put him into the police car. And so as I got there, I walked in and said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, we caught this gentleman breaking into your office." And I said, "Who is it?" And they looked in, and I said, "Wait a minute, I know him. I gave him a key." And so the young gentleman had been telling them this over and over again. The pastor gave me a key. And so evidently they didn't believe him when I got there, and I said, "I know him. I actually gave him the key." And the police officer said, "No, he was breaking in." I said, "No, he has a key." They said, "No, his footprint was on the door. You can see a little footprint right there." I said, "No, he has a key." He just continues to, the police officer continues, said, "Do you want to write a report up on him? We need to take him in." And it was over and over and over again for about 20 to 30 minutes, me telling them this gentleman had a key. They had him on the ground. He was scuffed up, and it was just, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see because this was a young man who was trying his best to find a job. He was trying his best to be a part of a good person, a good citizen. He said, I want to start my life. I want to be able to pay my bills. I want to do everything that I can. And by those actions at that point, I said, I believe these officers, good people, but for whatever it was on that day, the abuse that man felt on that day, I don't think he'll ever forget it. And it is a part of a pattern that many our young African-American males see. They tell me this all the time as they come to Sunflower and talk to me about jobs, and they feel like they have been harassed. And what we are here, hopefully, is to change the culture and to change the way that our police department deals with many of our young men in our community. So that's my story.
Our next story will now come from the lead pastor of St. Mark United Methodist Church, Pastor Junius B. Dotson. He will come and now give you a good interaction story.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for being here tonight. I am the father of a young African-American male who happens to be 6'3", and 18 years of old. My prayer for my son, Wesley, particularly when he became a teenager and started driving, quite frankly, was first and foremost that he wouldn't have to have any encounters with the police. And if by chance he had an encounter with the police, that encounter would be a positive one. Thought we'd not made it all the way through high school, but as it happened on Easter Sunday, the evening of Easter Sunday, my son was someplace he was not supposed to be, in another city, driving from Heston College, seeing somebody he was not supposed to see, but that's a whole other story. He was supposed to be at work, and he was speeding on 135 trying to get home. And a police car pulled up behind him, lights flashing. My son panicked. He panicked, he did not pull over immediately. Police officer said he drove for about 5 to 7 miles. Didn't think he was going to pull over. In fact, he had alerted the authorities in the neighboring county. When he finally pulled over, we're thankful that the police officer did not escalate the situation. What he did was he took him out of the car, he did handcuff him, but he talked to him calmly. He asked him why he didn't stop, and after having that conversation with him, decided to call his parents. And so the police officer called my wife and I, and he said I could have taken him to jail, but I'm going to stay here on the highway until you come get him. And so when we got there on the highway, we were two grateful parents, because we know that situation could have ended in a much different kind of way. I'm reminded of this quote from Kenneth Cloak and Joan Goldsmith that says, every conflict we faced in life is rich with positive and negative potential. It can be a source of inspiration, enlightenment, learning, transformation, and growth. Or rage, fear, shame, entrapment, and resistance. The choice is not up to our opponents, but up to us, and our willingness to face and work through them. Again, the purpose of this conversation tonight to help us be proactive in shaping our future together in the city of Wichita. And I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your presence here tonight. You can clap. We have two floor moderators that we did want to introduce. Reverend DeAndre Morris, who is the lead pastor of the Kingdom Harvest Church, and also Reverend Ray Moore, who is representing the Ministerial League, is the president of the Ministerial League, and we thank them for their presence tonight as well. We begin with a question to the panel. It's the same question. You each have 2 minutes each to respond to the question. And when we get to the audience, you'll also have 2 minutes to ask a question or to share a story or comment, and I'll be the official timekeeper tonight. So when we get to 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to please be respectful of the time so that as many people as possible have the opportunity to share tonight. Here's the question. What can we do to ensure that Ferguson does not happen here?
Testing.
The question was, how can we ensure that Ferguson doesn't happen here? And the first thing we have to do is what we're doing tonight, and that is having communication. Unfortunately, you know, Ferguson had to be the issue to bring us together as a community to be able to have this discussion. And, you know, I know that many years ago, many of you that have been here since the 80s know that we had many discussions, many individuals that are sitting here in the audience were there in those discussions on how we address various different issues to make sure that we didn't have various different things that happened in the city of Wichita back in the 70s, and also some incidents that happened in the 80s. So this is the very start, and I think it's by communication, but not just letting this event and us getting together to be able to have this discussion, identify how we can make our community better, but continuing this discussion on a regular basis, not allowing this to be just the first one, so I can get an opportunity to voice my opinion. Once we voice the opinion, let's work through the various different issues, and that means with the citizens and also with local government, law enforcement, with every entity that's involved. Did I get 2 minutes?
That was 1 minute, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much for your brevity.
Just so you know, that's history. I've never heard the mayor keep his comments to 1 minute. I think the mayor summarized it really well. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. The whole issue of community dialogue is something that the mayor has emphasized the entire time I've been in the community. We just came off a process called ACT ICT, where we had over 100 community meetings to talk about community priorities. Obviously, we're a stronger community when we're talking, when we're sharing ideas, and moving forward. I really like Mark's comments about being in this for the long haul and making permanent changes. We are at an interesting crossroads in our times. With Chief Williams announcing his retirement, we've decided to kind of take a step back and assess where we are with the police department, our strengths and our weaknesses, develop a blueprint for moving forward, and we're committed to having that a community-wide process. So we'll not be making a decision regarding the police chief's job description or the skill set necessary until we've had the ongoing discussion and as a community define where we want to go and how we want to go forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing the comments tonight. This will be, as the mayor mentioned, just one of a number of opportunities that all of you will have to talk about us moving forward as a city government and as a community.
Thank you.
Good evening. I echo the same as what the manager and the mayor had just mentioned as well about dialogue. First and foremost, it can't end tonight. We've got to keep it going. That's the plan, to keep it going. In the interim, as we've discussed, we're in unique times for a police department. Right now, with Chief Williams announcing his retirement, in the interim, we have come together as a staff. We think this is an important enough issue, obviously, with the Ferguson conversations going across the country. But at the end of the day, it's about us. And it's a shame that it had to be that conversation to get us all at this place. But I'm encouraged by the turnout of the audience. And also I want to thank everyone for putting this together. With the Wichita Police Department, we plan to look towards the future. We've had conversations with our staff already in the interim talking about what can we do better. You know, we're not perfect, but we always can strive and take input from the community as well as our internal members and put things together and work towards the future. And I'm encouraged by the turnout. With us all to here today, and our executive staff are taking notes to take some comments back that we can use in the interim to work together. And at the end of the day, it's all about all of us working together.
Yes, again, my name is Carlos Contreras with Kansas People's Action. Born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, mainly in the north side. High Latino population over there, but always worked in the community. And just here to reinforce that this is a one community issue. This is whatever affects the east side of 135 affects the west side of 135. And it's about one community, whether it be black, brown, or whatever. It happens everywhere. I mean, Ferguson is already here, right? And so there needs to be increased accountability as far as citizens and people actually participating in what goes on with when there's complaints going on against police or authorities. I've worked in the neighborhood for a number of years and got called out many times in the middle of the night to try to mediate issues between the police and between residents, whether it be in English or Spanish or different cultures or so on. We tried working with Professional Standards Bureau and really never saw those issues go anywhere. We tried working on the Racial Profiling Board and never saw that go anywhere. And so there needs to be better accountability of what happens when we try to bring people to the table so that they can have their issues heard, so we can make this community better. We need to know that those are going somewhere and something's being done. Speaking in terms of Latino community as well, we have a high immigrant population. A lot of these immigrants come from their countries already with high corruption and high predisposition by authorities, and so already have a mistrust, so to speak. And so the only contact they ever have here is when someone from their family is getting arrested or when somebody is getting deported, and it's creating a generation of young Latinos, which will be the majority one day, that already has a mistrust, a lack of confidence in the authorities, and we need to be able to bridge that gap. I think that what we need is higher accountability and a little bit and more cultural sensitivity across the lines.
Pastor, I've gotten so involved in listening to the other panelists. Can you repeat that question one more time?
What can we do to ensure that Ferguson does not happen here? 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge the families that have lost a loved one here tonight. I want you in Wichita here tonight. I want to say to you that we've heard your voice, we acknowledge your pain, and this is just the first step of many. We are committed wholeheartedly to making a change in our community and being a part of that. So, amen, amen. We hear you, sister. Amen, amen, amen. And we're really encouraged by that. We've had many people who have called us and have said, you know what, we haven't been as active and we haven't been as involved, but today we're going to join you and we're going to join with you. So we're encouraged. So maybe we'll have some more volunteers so that we can have some help in making things different. I wanted to just start off by saying that. But I also want to acknowledge the frontline soldiers that are out here tonight that have been holding it down for a long, long time, that have been pushing forward and voicing when nobody else has been voicing and speaking when nobody else has been speaking. I see you here tonight too, and I want to recognize you as well. Thank you, thank you. Now, I made sure, because I knew that we were going to have a long list of concerns, so I wrote them down, and we have them here on a piece of paper so we can be very clear and concise on what we expect. So I want to move forward with just kind of saying this. For 95 years, the NAACP has been a part of this community. And tonight we want to reaffirm our commitment to working with like-minded organizations that are committed to having not only courageous conversations, but taking courageous steps to making things in this community better. We know that it's going to take us all. We know that it's going to take us all working together.
2 minutes, Kenny.
2 minutes is up?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll have more opportunities. More capabilities.
All right.
Thank you.
We got to respect the process.
Ruben Eccles, and Deputy Director of I would say with Sunflower Community Action. And the first thing I think Carlos Contreras talked about it, and that is of accountability. And the first thing I think we need to really understand and try to do is as Mark McCormick said, is begin to change the system. And that is we need a citizens review board with subpoena power. us the accountability. It will give, it would begin to change the perception that people are shut out of the process. It would open it up. The other thing I believe is we need cameras on our police officers. That was led by Mr. Selman and others a long time ago. And we needed the community. The community needs, and the last part of that is the community needs to step up. Talk about other folk, and you have many of these are elected officials who appoint others. And so if you did not vote, you sitting here pissed tonight because 2 years ago, 4 years ago, you didn't vote, and now those things are happening, and the process is happening, and you're now being affected by it. Now you're mad. You should have voted in 2000. I'll say this, when we went out the way, young man named A.J. Bohannon went to the mall, put on a hoodie that he bought in the place. And they would not allow him to wear that hoodie in the place where he was arrested for it. And the community, we stood by and we watched it happen. And now another thing happens and we jump up and we mad. We cannot be a crisis community being pissed when a crisis happens. We need to be proactive. Vote, 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 vote.
Thank you, Reverend Preacher Doctor. He moved us right into our next segment. We want to acknowledge all of our elected officials. If you are here, please stand that we may recognize those who we have voted for. We are constituents. If we missed any of them, we thank you for being here. We're now moving to the part that is your turn. And the panel will get to answer your questions. So that's why we allowed Kenya to go ahead and stop at 2 minutes ago. She can answer some more questions. But we have given you cards also for those who do not want to speak to the mic, but you still want your question answered. Make sure you get it to our part of our team right here, Pastor Moore, and we're going to start this off by allowing you now to answer questions. Now, moderator is on the floor here. Moderator is on the floor here. We would ask, now what you can do if you want to, if the moderators want to start a line with you, we can only have 2 to 3 in the line. This is the information I was given by our school board because of the fire law. You cannot block the lines. If you want to do that, you put 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here, and 2 here, and you can rotate that out and continue to come. We'll be doing this until 8:30, so bring your questions. Now, what I want to affirm to you, and I want you to hear this from me, and you've heard it several times from our panel. This is not a one-time event. We are taking your information, your dialogue, your frustrations, and we're compiling it all together, taking it back to our city and our county, our elected officials, our police department, sheriff department, along with the Kansas leadership team, along with the Kansas Foundation, along with Wichita State University, and finding out how do we, as a good friend of mine, Mr. Ron Holt told me, define the issue so that we can have the solution. And this is the first step to defining the issue that we may find a solution long term. And as Mark said it well, it takes all of us to do this together. So at this time, I have the honor and the privilege to first allow this person, we as a team, said who we would like to honor and to allow to be the first speaker. We said we would like to have our first speaker be Mrs. Ida Allen, with her question.
And she's coming. You can ask those who are standing on the wall back there, if you can please come find a seat. Those of you who are already seated, if you can help people get seated. Thank you so much. We just got a note from the school board asking you to please do that. Thank you.
Mrs. Ida Allen.
There's some seats over here.
Question on behalf of all the families. I don't know why they elected me, but so I'm trying to choose a question that kind of encompasses something that we all might want to know, and it's a kind of 2 or 3 part question, if that's okay. I would like you guys to explain the investigation process when there's an officer-involved shooting, meaning the bureaus and agencies that are involved in that. Also, how are we able to get an outside investigation where it's not all just Kansas involved, covering each other in that process? And, well, I think those are the first 2. And also, if you could explain in the last 20 or 30 years how there's never been an unjustified shooting for an officer. Since you stated that
Well, I'll explain the process. You know, anytime an incident, officer-involved shooting occurs, obviously our detectives respond. You asked about the agencies involved. It's the Wichita Police Department, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the KBI, and we work together in processing the scene. KBI, DA's office, Wichita Police Department, and professional standards within. I'm naming several pieces to the Wichita Police Department as well. The process is we bring the officers in and we investigate it. We process the scene. What we do as a department is make initial statements out on the scene on what we know at that point. Now, during the investigation, sometimes those things change, but we make initial statements. And KBI is involved in the interviews of our police officers and also involved in any interviews of witnesses out on the scene or anybody we can get a hold of to get information on this particular case. Anybody there. I mean, what is it? No, we interview. We try to interview everybody at hand.
What is the involved?
Oh, they're involved with our detectives as in the interview process of the officers.
Explain the word involved. What do you mean? Because my
They are
understanding is that they sit and watch. I had a detective explain it to me just that way. They just watch. So I want you to explain what involved is.
No, they don't just sit and watch. They are part of the interview process of interviewing the witnesses, the officers involved. They are part of that process. And ultimately, once the investigation is completed, it's presented to the district attorney's office. And at that point, again, we can't make comments. We don't make comments per our policy because, again, if our agency is involved, we don't make any further comments. So KBI is involved as far as interviews. They are involved.
Next question.
An unjustified officer involved shooting.
Okay.
I would like that explained.
Everything justified, what you saying.
Yeah.
I know you're asking that question, but let me go just a little deeper from my own research and the question you're asking. Your question is why there has never been an unjustified homicide. Is that correct? Okay, I want to share with you, and if you like to do homework, one of our biggest challenges to that piece is because of our Supreme Court. Supreme Court really has the police department's back. I don't want to go forever because it's way up there, but it starts here. To get the Supreme Court to back off of defending not good cops, but defending bad cops. And so your question that you're asking, I'll give you the link, the highlight, the articles. We have, there's imminent need when it comes to an officer, even when he is even found to be the person in trouble, are found to be guilty, there's another clause that the Supreme Court will cover them in that process. That's why if you even look across the country, you have not heard that.
Even still, I'm talking about with our city, we can still hold our own officers accountable, and we're letting them do that over there. I'm talking about.
No, you're hearing me, you're correct. That's why I said it starts here, what we're doing right now, but it has to move to the Supreme Court. And that's homework for all of us, if you don't believe me. So I want to make sure you get that question answered. Next question over here.
I greet you in peace. I greet everyone in peace. I want to say this, it's hard to do this in 2 minutes, make sure you help me out here. It wouldn't have taken a Ferguson for this kind of discussion to happen if all of the discussion prior to now, if there would have been action put to that. And some of the questions that Sister just asked answers that. If we would have went ahead with the discussions and put some accountability and put various policies in place that actually work, then it wouldn't have been a Ferguson. And it wouldn't have been rebellions that have happened here in Wichita as well. But all over the U.S., everybody knows that it's common knowledge that law enforcement, there's been a rise and an escalation in the killings of black people, of any people, but especially African people. We've been able to document from over 90 cities, over 2,000 killings plus in a short period of time. But right here in Wichita, from 2010 to 2014, there's been over 10 people that have been killed by Wichita PD that we know of, the majority of them black. I'm not going to take the time to read all of their names, but Jerome Dixon, Colbert, DeJuan Colbert, Marquez Smart, the Collins family, Lanning, Karen Jackson, our own Akaris Randolph, my own family. This is what we want. Look, guys, there's been a very simple slogan that's been out for so long, but for some reason, it seems like we don't get it. No justice, no peace. It's really as simple as that. We simply want justice. We, the organizations that are coming together, all we're saying is that we're fiercely, we're not asking, and this is no threat, we are fiercely demanding justice through action. And we have some ideas. And we're not coming to the table. I don't know how to say. Somebody help me. Give me 30 seconds at least let me know that. So what we are calling for, some various members of the
6 seconds, Shakira.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, in 6 seconds, I'm going to say this, what we want. We need for some very serious things to be put in place. One, officers do need to be brought up on, arrested, brought up on charges in questionable situations. Names need to be released. People need to be, the officers should not be paid by tax dollars while they're on vacation. We're not asking for a community board. There's people in our community, we are organizing one, and what we will be asking for is that power that he's talking about. And all I need, there will be continuing meetings. And so yes, this isn't the end all. And some of you who got this flyer as I take my seat, follow up meetings.
Thank you, Shakira.
Next question.
My concern is a mother, a wife, and a father, mother of a son. Education for our youth. They're not being educated what to do when a cop does arrest them. Nobody has trained our youth. What is the curriculum in the schools, in the communities? It trains them what to do, protocol to follow. I feel that's our biggest thing, no education about what to do. Anybody trained them when an officer approaches you, what do you do? Do you hold your hands? I mean, I have a friend whose son was pulled at point range to his face, mistaken. It wasn't even him that did the thing. But I'm saying education is key. Train our young men, get something established, get a curriculum established somewhere to train them. Train our young people what to do, get a curriculum established of what not and what to do. And then be patient. Don't be so brash to, with officers, everyone's not bad. But don't be so quick to shoot. Because he may have a cell phone in his pocket. He may have a piece of gum, whatever. It may not be a gun. So education is key. First, educate our youth, first of all.
Thank you. In those kind of instances, because clearly she's asking for training as part of the solution, we'll write that down. So if you have a specific question that a panelist can answer, then we'll go to you. Otherwise, we'll just try to keep moving and give people to give the people an opportunity to talk and ask questions. So let's go to the next question.
Okay, hey, hi. Good evening. I want to disagree with Pastor Eccles. I love Pastor when you said that we're a crisis community. I have, and others have been out there way before anything had happened and asked people to come and join us. We have for a long, long time, and only a few will show up. And so, you know, maybe we have to hold ourselves accountable too for the ones that didn't come out. But there have been people that have came out on issues like DCF and school closings and the shootings and all of that. Because I have sat at the table with some of the people that's up there right now. I have come before the city council. So there, I can't say that we are a crisis community because some of us have asked those leaders and the community to come out. And if we're to work together, I mean, I just don't want to hear words anymore. You know, let's be committed to working together on the issues that are impacting people in this city, and some of it to, you know, to the detriment of people losing their lives. And I just want to say this before I leave. I don't know how many minutes I have, but Attorney James Thompson did a presentation about 2 weeks ago. And he was talking about in 2012, we had 14 WPD shootings, 5 of them were fatal. He made a comparison of Chicago and Detroit. And he said per capita, Wichita had more shootings than any of those two cities. So, 14 times the national average. So, you know, something's wrong here, and I think a lot of people that have come here do not want to hear words. They want to see some solutions, some commitments from those of you that sitting there, and those who are our leaders. We need to work together. Let's work together.
Thank you. Anybody want to respond on that?
The individual that first addressed us just a moment before, Ms. Dean, one of the things that we have done in the past here, and Mary Dean and our legal redress chair, Charles Coleman, I don't see him tonight, but Dr. Coleman, you all put together we put together a summit for our young people, the 511 for the 50, and how to deal with that, and the things that you needed to do. And we really, that day, we tried to encourage as many young people to come out. And I'm gonna tell you, we had more people there that was working in the community than community individuals that came out. So I just want to stress again that we need all of you all working and joining with us. So thank you. Dr. Coleman, Ms. Mary, thank you.
Just want to say first, I tried to come up with 2 ideas first. That is with the Citizens Review Board and with subpoena power. That was the first thing I said. And the second one was having cameras on police officers. I tried to come up with solutions first. Third, the statement I made, if we had in 2000 4 young babies died being shot, we called it the Forgotten 4, and we had then a prayer vigil. We then had a number of shootings across the city, and we had other prayer vigils. And when I say we're crisis movement, is because, as we said, as Dr. King said, we let things go for a couple of weeks, and then we dive back down, and then we come back and do this again. We've never had a crowd like this for anything else. And so it is not a statement to put down folks, but it's a statement that is real. And we need to make sure that we sustain this. It has to be sustained. And it's going to take the community to push folk. One of the things we do is we vote for folk, we put them in the office, and we don't hold them accountable. We just sit back and we wait till something happens and we get mad. We need to hold everybody accountable, from pastors, organizations, and the community. Can I get an amen?
Question right here.
So you're gonna say your statement and then you want to,
That's
go ahead.
fine. Well, I just want to pick up on that.
Hold on in the back.
It's one thing for us to have a meeting like this. I think the call for action is that we have to roll up our sleeves and do the hard work. And I think that's the important thing, is that let's get this on the table tonight, let's talk about these issues. But then, whether it's a smaller group, whether it's a group that is bigger and can work effectively, but let's make sure we start talking about what Wichita does best, and that is roll up its sleeves and figure out a way to get to where we want to go. And so I think what we're committed to do at the city is to listen to the concerns, possibly offer some solutions, but more importantly, commit that we're going to work together on those solutions. And so I think the call to action is appropriate and one that we should continue to be committed to, and not just come up to a meeting like this and then disappear, or, you know.
Okay, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to have a question here and a question here, and then we're going to come back to the panel for any of you who have comments from what you've heard thus far. Then we're going to come back to this side and this side. You see the rotation that we're trying to do? And again, so the quicker you ask your comment or your question, the more we can get, because we are only here till 8:30. All right? Let's go, Pastor.
Okay, my name is Charity Blackman. I'm a member of St. Mark and Vice President of Justice Keepers. I have three things in 2 minutes. The first thing is transparency. A transparent police department. We need people's numbers, email addresses. If we have questions, we need to be able to talk to somebody directly, and action that follows that. The second thing is trust. We won't be able to get the people to trust the police until the police can trust us as a people. Every time you pull somebody over, they don't have guns, they don't have drugs. That's another issue, harassment. The third thing is respect. In order for us to respect the police department and police officers, we need that same respect coming back. Sister Shakur said, if we don't get justice, there won't be peace. I have different people's numbers, and I will call you every day. I will email you until you get that number changed, until I see action. I have a 12-year-old little brother who has autism, and I fear for him. I would hate to get the call that he was shot by a police officer. I would have no understanding about that. And thank you for listening today.
Good evening. First, I want to give honor to God who's ahead of my life. My name is AJ Bohannon. Before this 120 seconds that I have in front of you, I will be going by Michael Brown and Marquez Smart. My question to the board is, or I have a statement first. My question is that I believe the first question that was asked was, what can we do to not have Ferguson here? But I believe that's a misleading question, because part of Ferguson is already existing in Wichita, Kansas. Just like the case in Ferguson, there is no police and community transparency when it comes to police-involved killings. There is little to no details released when these things happen. There's extremely large prejudice of racial profiling here in the city of Wichita, Kansas. So my question is, what can we do to remove the Ferguson-related attitude, actions, and methods from the Wichita PD, such as racial profiling, police killings, and police brutality, especially on African-American young men? I believe that police cameras are the answer. And my question to you is, why can't we shoot the police if the police can shoot us? And when I say shoot, I don't mean with a gun, I mean with a camera. It's a lot of African-American young men out here that are being shot down in cold blood. And from my understanding, it is a couple of police officers that are on the police force that do not want to be shot. But as African-American young men, I speak for a lot of us, we don't want to get shot either, but we don't have that say-so, so why should they?
Thank you. We'll go to the panel to respond.
The issue of cameras is one that we've been looking at. The mayor and council have asked us to continue to look at alternatives to improve our police operations. The cost of the cameras is about a little over $1.2 million. We're looking at funding alternatives in order to be able to do that.
Okay, please be respectful. Please let them talk.
Yeah.
We can't talk over each other. Thank you.
I just, I want to make sure that you understand that it is an expensive issue, but one that I think could be part of the solution. I don't disagree with that. Pardon me? We don't have a tank, but I understand. But the issue is, can we find a way to improve trust by getting cameras? And that's something we're committed to continuing to look at. And I'm hoping that we'll have a solution that we can present to the mayor and council before the end of the year. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No camera, no gun.
You know, for the police department, we've had these talks inside, just like I said before. And tonight, we can't just stop with this forum. We have to keep these talks going. And at the end of the day, what I said earlier was it's going to take all of us together. I mean, we're not going to be able to solve everything tonight, but I've taken down a lot of good notes as to some input that I've already heard. You know, training or talking, working with our youth. That's an important piece to this as well. And I'm taking down the notes. We're also looking at things and bringing to our department, you know, having the conversations inside as well. Not just the police department with the community, but internally as well. So this is a springboard into many conversations and working together. And as I said before, we're taking notes here. We're jotting down this information. And it's not just the police department or the city. It's all of us together.
Thank you. We're also taking official notes of your comments and suggestions tonight as well. Some persons have submitted questions by index cards, and I want to interject one question right now. And the question is, are there emergency measures we can implement right now to make our process more trustworthy, such as, could we view disciplinary records of chronic bad actors in our police department, but do so by employee number as opposed to by name? Can one of you respond to that?
This was in response to...
that was a question.
Questions is about reviewing police
Officer-involved shooters, yes. Or yes. Chronic bad actors.
By numbers. Right. There's a number of things we can do, but again, you have to be careful when you're dealing with personnel issues and talking about information about members or with any organization. We're going to look at a number of ways on open transparency. And I'm going to work with the staff and look at, number one, talking about these issues. And I've also heard this as well. How about reviewing our employee files? But again, we have to watch out. We can't let out employee information. But how do we do that? I mean, this is conversations that have to go on, and we have to figure out internally as well. But right now, again, we have employees' rights and employee issues that we deal with.
Next question.
Pastor Moore.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sherry Bent. I have a quick question. There's one thing that they talked a lot about on a national level was the militarization of the police force and how that has impacted, maybe even since the 80s, your approach to citizens. Whereas there used to be more of a community approach where maybe you had officers within the community, maybe walking the streets, just interacting with neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. But then it seems like with the war on drugs and then moving forward, we've had more of this militarization. And so I want to know, one, if that's something that you consider here in Wichita. Two, do you think that has certainly an impact, not just on the weapons that you use, but also your approach to people? Because when we talk about military, we're talking about an attack. When we're talking about community police, and I think my pastor said this before, but just about how police officers interact. I mean, we're all human beings, so to the extent that we are able to interact with one another and learn from one another versus this approach where you're just going to kind of go in and take care of a situation like you would do if you were trained in the military. I mean, mean, that kind of, to me, that's what the militarization of the police force has done. So as you're also looking for new leadership, is that something that you can consider? Is that something that you have considered?
Amen. We'll that's a very good question. So we're going to let the panel take that now. Now, what I'm hearing is community policing, which is I'm in great favor of, which has been a proactive approach. So we'll get that to our city manager.
Yes, I mean, Wichita was a trendsetter in terms of setting up community policing in the early years. I've had a lot of people tell me that they think we need to look at that concept and figure out what the next generation of community policing is, and that is one of the things that we're doing as part of the organizational assessment, and that it will be important moving forward in our discussions with all of you about what the expectations are for community policing. I think there isn't a person on the police department who wouldn't agree that the closer we can get to everyone in the community, relate to each other on a human level, we'll be much more successful. We're committed to making that work. I think, again, we have an opportunity to have the next generation community policing model developed here in Wichita if we kind of roll up our sleeves again and work together.
Thank you. Question? I'm sorry, Mayor.
Oh, I was just going to piggyback on the city manager's comment about the community policing, and certainly back when we had community policing, when it started, that's at a point in time when things were difficult in our community. And I know some of you can still remember when, after it became dark, the first thing we did was hurry up and got inside. And we started community policing and using the police officers as a tool and a resource to be able to support our actions and being able to clean up and make our neighborhood safer. So I think that we have to go back, we have the concept and we have the idea in mind of what we actually want to see, but the other portion is it's going to require not just the policymakers or elected officials or the city manager or myself, but it's going to also require some of you to say, okay, this is what we think this new model is, and this is what we think this type of relationship. Because at that point in time, you had ownership where individuals were wanting to picket City Hall because that police officer was leaving that community. So we need to get back to that environment, that type of trust.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Wilson, and I'm representing Central Northeast Area Council, and I see several of the neighborhood presidents here. A couple of months back, the union and the city agreed that several officers who refused to wear body cameras would not have reprisals against them. That's fine, but I'm here to represent the Central Northeast area community that says if they don't want cameras on them, we don't want them in our neighborhoods.
A couple, we want to also honor the cards because folks are bringing them to them, and we thank you for that. And if you do have a card and you didn't get an answer, will you still leave that card with us so we can compile all those questions when we have our strategic meeting on the next step? Question here, real short one I wanted to the panel, or particularly to the police department. Why did Wichita Police Department remove protect and serve from their cars? Okay, let them answer now.
Actually, you're letting the cat out of the bag here. We are right now looking at a new police car that's been run through our department and put through a committee process. On the fender, and that's why I said the cat's out of the bag, I haven't presented it yet, but it has protect and serve. And at the, what we worked on is putting this
The overlying issue, or underlying issue for the department, was that they were there to make this city safe for the families in Wichita. And the word family came up over and over again. And that's ultimately what our department wants to do, is make this a safe community. I think that's what all of you are saying too. So we're going to work on the methods necessary to make this a safe community and keep it that way. And so you know, we can argue over words on cars, but the underlying issue is you have hundreds of people that work for the police department that are committed to the same thing you are. And let's just find the right way to achieve our objectives, okay?
Thank you. Question? Right here.
My name is John Roger Franklin. I represent the northeast side of town. I have a question for the multiple pastors we have on the board, in the panel, and in the audience. Before I get to that question, I had a comment on what the young lady had said about 10 minutes ago about no peace, no justice. Now, we all know at the end of the day, until we practice group economics as a people, we're not going to have any peace, no justice, and no respect. Until we come together and start practicing group economics. But until that, it is what it is. Now, to the multiple pastors that we have, my question is, I'm on the northeast side of town. We don't have a lot of black businesses. We don't. That's the truth. But we have a church on every corner. My question is, are you willing, are pastors willing to come together and come up with a strategic plan for the northeast side of town? Are you willing to come together? You can't depend on the city. You can't. You know the city's track record. We can't depend on the city. No disrespect to the city. Our tax dollars pay this out. Understand? No disrespect. But on the northeast side of town, are you guys willing to come together to form a strategic plan for the northeast community? There's people out there struggling. There's a lot of angry brothers out there. And I feel sorry for the police officers who have to pull them over. There's a lot of angry brothers out there. I'm rolling with a brother the other day, former gang member. I'm trying to witness to him. He said, how you gonna tell me about love and Christ, about getting out the game, when y'all got a church in every corner? Y'all divided. He said, y'all divided. But how to tell him? We divided. So the audience is my witness. Are you guys willing to come up with a strategic plan for the northeast side of town?
Okay. First of all, thank you for your comment. I know Ruben's going to say something. I already know he's going to say something behind me. And I'm definitely getting ready to say something to you. First of all, pastors are a part of the church. That's you. That's you. That's you over here. And you over there who come into those buildings. Second piece to that, if you have done your strategic study, the largest employer in the Northeast community is the black church. Some of the people sitting in here work in these local churches.
Finding an institution that has supported the community, that we all can pull our resources to. And pull them. If we can't go to y'all bank, if y'all bank don't want to support us, okay, we'll pull our stuff and we're going to put it in one that does, that invests back in the community. So we've talked about this. One of the things that you see Bishop is doing is strategic. Some folks may not like it, and other folks, but we're talking about if you don't want to teach our children, we'll teach our own. And so we're doing those, we're talking about this is a huge conversation. And that's why I'm so glad that we're having this tonight. This is what needs to happen. It's a large conversation. We talked about, but again, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna keep saying it till I'm blue in the face. You have to hold us accountable. You gotta keep on pushing and keep on pushing and keep on pushing. And to hold accountable, folk gotta be willing to do the work too. Don't talk about it if you don't. Not just you, everybody got to put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, and what you're speaking to is economic development, and I just want to piggyback on what Pastor Harding and Pastor Echols have already said. I want to thank them for their comments.
Give me a date, Pastor. Give me a date. Give me a date.
You don't get a date right now. You don't get a date right now.
Okay. All right, let me finish here. So the issue is one of economic development. Pastor Moore, who leads the ministerial league, that's something we'll put on the agenda as we talk about that. So we are committed to doing that. We're also committed to a city that practices fairness and equity as it relates to developing all of its neighborhoods, as it relates to providing city services for all of its neighborhoods. And so part of that is we have to hold the city accountable for economic development and infrastructure development in our communities as well. So we cannot let that go unanswered as well.
Yes, one thing that hasn't been addressed is the 900-pound gorilla in the room that has caused a lot of these problems is the federal government. Starting with the Department of Homeland Security, the last, I can't remember how many years, quite a few, they've given away, I think as I remember right, $4.3 billion worth of military equipment in the form of grants to police departments. I'm not sure they need any of that stuff, but when you take these young officers and dress them up like warriors, some of them used to be warriors, and tell them to go out and be peace officers, they ain't gonna do it. So, I noticed in the paper, they showed that, I think at Bearcat, I think that's what they call it, that the county only costs $15,000. Well, that's not true. It came from the federal government, and that's all tax money, and they cost about $215,000 to $280,000. How did we exist the first 125, 30 years without one of those things? You know, come on. We don't need that stuff. You can't. When I see these, I'm a 67-year-old white guy. When I see these guys dressed up like warriors, I want to take them on. I'm not kidding. I don't know if anybody up there was old enough, I know it may seem off the subject, but in 1970, an event in Kent, Ohio happened, and 4 students were killed by National Guards with M16s. And the reason that happened, there was so many things that had happened in the late 60s and the early 70s that some of you have seen. The reason that happened is because they were dressed up like soldiers and they were carrying an M16. And anybody who's ever shot one knows how dangerous those things are.
2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, this is a question for the city manager. Can you describe your role in selecting the next chief, process, timeline, and what are you willing to commit to in terms of allowing us as a community to fully participate in this decision?
Well, we made it about an hour before that came up, so the process, I mentioned it in my opening remarks. The first thing we're going to do is complete the organizational assessment, address some of the issues that have been talked about tonight, determine where we want to go in the future, and there'll be significant community input as we work through that. In fact, we've brought in Wichita State to help us design the engagement process. We'll be continuing to work with the pastors here so that we make sure that we have representation from the community. But we'll be doing this in other parts of the community as well. Once we have that, then we'll develop a job description and the skill set necessary to achieve, for a leader that will help us achieve that vision. And at that point, I will have I'll have community representatives involved in this selection process, the interview process. Mayor and council members will have a voice in that. It's important that we all feel comfortable about the new leader in the police department, and so it will be participatory. I'll take that input and then we'll make a final decision. But again, we have to start with the assessment first, and then that'll help guide the process.
I would say, pretty much, I think that that's a fair process. I know many of you are involved in the process with every time we've had a new chief of police, and you've been involved in that, and certainly I encourage us to continue that effort. But also, I hate to go back and point out to you, as we work through this entire process, just bear in mind, you don't know what, they said the mayor and city council. In April, there's a possible chance you have 4 council members leaving, so you don't know who's coming in. So the only way that you're going to be able to have that voice or make sure you get that right person is in, as you heard earlier, you better be registered to vote, you better go out and vote, you better go get somebody to vote in that's going to represent you.
A couple more cards and then we will.
Pastor, we see some people leaving, and I do want to say that the NAACP members are back here, and they have voter registrations with them. And if you have not registered to vote tonight, please do so. And please, everybody, commit to make sure that they take 10 individuals with them.
If you have not registered, find Sister Kenya Cox in the north, in the foyer. Question: what information can be provided to us as a community to assure us that action is being taken against officers who have violated the laws established for their proper conduct? What information can be provided to the community to assure us that actions are being taken against the officer when they've done something violated?
Well, first and foremost, if there's a officer out there and there's an issue of misconduct, first off, I encourage you to call us. Let us know what's going on and inform our professional standards of that. But if you want information as to how many investigations we conducted, internal or external, I can provide that as well. But we want you to reach out. If there's questions, call us. But to hold them accountable, if there's a misconduct issue, and I think that you've seen in the news that we've had some officers charged in the past as well that have gone through the process. But reach out to us. And again, tonight we're not going to solve everything, but this is encouraging, and I will be out there, and our staff will be out there, and we'll be talking to you. I mean, it starts with us together, working together, and having your input. But we hold our officers accountable.
Thank you. Question right here.
Hi, today is the anniversary of Dr. King's speech on the mall. I just found that interesting that that's happening, and this is happening tonight. My name is Bill Anderson. I'm with Occupy Wichita. And as you can tell, I'm an old white guy. I mention my whiteness because the deck is stacked in favor of us white folks. That's a dirty secret, and it shouldn't be a secret, but it's true. For meaningful change to occur, we white folks have to confront the systemic racism, which is one source of our white privilege. The recent tragedy in Ferguson demonstrated the intersection of 4 evils that Dr. King described in his speech against the Vietnam War at Riverside Church. They are racism, poverty, militarism, and materialism. And the 4 evils must be addressed for this thing to go away, for us to have justice, real justice. With regard to improving the interaction of the police and people in Wichita, I favor the following. For transparency, as Rudy said, cameras on police, a citizens review board with subpoena power. We need to demilitarize the police. We need a public accounting of the numbers and kinds of military weapons in the possession of local law enforcement and how they are currently being used. In addition, we need to address racial profiling, addressing the school-to-jail pipeline, the effects of the so-called war on drugs on minorities and the poor. These include mass incarceration and the stigma of a felony conviction. Thank you very much. Thank
let me, since he had a statement, let me put a question to that statement with the card here that connects with what he just spoke. In preparation for creating a strong police force, what process is used to weed out individuals who clearly demonstrate racist behavior and a Klan mentality? And can you please give Deputy Chief an opportunity to answer the question?
Well, obviously, we recruit to mirror our community. So first off, what I would encourage everyone to do is give us good qualified candidates. We're in the process of filling a recruit class right now, and we need good qualified candidates for that class. So I would encourage you to get involved, have them get in our process, and get into that lengthy process. And then number two, we have a detailed process, a thorough background check on our departmental members. If you're trying to get into the police department, it is a very thorough process that you have to go through. But again, we want the best for our community. It has to be pretty thorough. And to go to the comments of racist people or anything of that nature, that goes to that background check and looking at this person as a whole. Are they qualified to be a police officer in the first place? Because again, we recruit to mirror our community. But I need your help as well. That means get out, have good qualified candidates come and join our police department.
Thank you. Question here. Start over. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead, start over.
My name is Malcolm Bedford. I'm speaking for the youth. I'm afraid for the youth. I'm afraid for our kids. Can I get everybody on their feet right now? On their feet right now. Get up right now. Up. We don't want to be next.
Okay, what's your question, sir?
Don't shoot. I don't want our kids to be next. Please, don't shoot. Please, don't shoot. Please, don't shoot.
Thank you. Thank you. Before you go to that question, let me ask a couple of things. Number one, I'm looking at our time. So if you're not already in line, please don't join the line. Secondly, if your question has already been asked, or if your statement has already been made, I would respectfully ask that you would be seated. Thirdly, we have a lot of young people that I would love to hear from today that are standing in line. And I think it would be great if you're in line with young people, if you let them kind of skip you. Thank you so much.
And fourth, please do not forget to give us your cards with your questions so we can compile them at the end if we don't get to them. We're now here. Where are we at? Right here. Then we're going to there. Yes.
Okay. Well, I did have a speech, but most of the good things have been said. So I have a suggestion for you to consider. I believe that, of course, a Citizens Review Board with subpoena power would go a long way to improving communication between the community and police. And then secondly, I also believe that one of the major causes for the violence that we see is the state statute. Now, I am aware, of course, the city of Wichita can't change the state statute, but I do believe an endorsement of changing the state statute at the city level, just the vocalization would help any sort of local efforts to get it changed. And that state statute is KS 215227. And what it states in there, the problem is it states that an officer can use lethal force on the justification of reasonable belief. The evidential requirement is reasonable belief. And that could mean anything, like he's afraid. It's a very subjective standard. And the higher standard that I would endorse is beyond a reasonable doubt, because I believe that our officers ought to be held to the highest standard that the law has available. I did want to know what your positions were on the Citizens Review Board, each one of you. Something.
Ask a question to the panel. Review, did he say he wanted to know, what's your opinion on the review board? Citizen review board.
I think currently there's two citizen review boards that we recognize. One that's appointed by the city manager, and then there's another one that's self-appointed. And certainly we try to respect everyone, citizens and also individuals, whether it be the victim or the individual that actually committed the crime. And so, or whatever it was that happened. So we try to respect that privacy and stay within that portion of the law. So we certainly think that it's important to always have an additional set of eyes that are watching and seeing what's going on and advising us as to what they actually came up with. Already got it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go here now.
Good evening, Juanita Blackman Ridge. I have been on the front line since 1990 with Positive Youth Making a Difference. We cleaned up the 21st Street Project. I am the reason why we are the All-American City. I was the first one that they called so that we implement that. Let's not forget that. One of the reasons why a lot of our people in our community don't come to meetings or don't come forth, I will talk about you in a minute, is because of retaliation. Retaliation in the city of Wichita is a serious problem. I have, as Justice Keepers of Wichita, I have met and was supposed to meet people at the Internal Affairs office. They never would show up. I was supposed to meet them at court. Sometimes they wouldn't show up. So I know that retaliation is a serious problem. I've been a victim myself. Another thing is, I have personally had an opportunity to sit down with the police department with gang prevention proposals, with the Healing the Brotherhood campaign. And instead of implementing the Healing the Brotherhood campaign, they have had to raise their voices too loud and out of order because there weren't people there to help them heal through this process after they lost their family member to a gang police shooting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I accept your apology. My name is Deborah Pope, and I would just like to say that the panel looks good, don't they? I wonder how well I am represented on the panel. But giving honor to God, excuse me, Lord, for having to get myself first, giving you credit. But, before the murders, there was so much police brutality in our community, and then on the streets, in the institutions, case after case after case. I have been coming to these meetings for I don't know how long. I am tired. Sister talked about it, we have these meetings and as a community, we really need to look at ourselves, for real, because we have allowed so much to go on in this community. We didn't need, what's that place in Missouri? Yeah, we didn't need Ferguson. We had a whole lot of examples, before then. I don't know, until it happens to you or to your cousin, you don't feel it. And I've been feeling it a long time. Enough for me, enough for you, enough for everybody, My kids have been beat down. I have been beat down. I've been to the little, used to be internal, what it used to be. Then it turned into professional, something. And all of it is just a joke. It is a joke. And I'm sorry to say it, but it is. And another thing, on your training, when you train, your new training, procedures that you're going to start.
It's 2 minutes.
Okay, I need one because y'all passed me up. Because, and I'm older than you. And you too, Pastor.
Yes, ma'am, I know.
you know? It's like you spit on them. Oh, are you spitting at me? I mean, you spit on the ground. Oh, are you spitting at me? Just, they're too sensitive, you know, and especially, I think, to minorities. And I also heard that it's not easy being a black man on WPD. You know, I understand that there's been many officers who have been ostracized for their beliefs, black officers. And so I would like to see something that help us support our black officers who really care about us.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Where are we at now? We're here now. We're going to keep going like that in this circle.
My name is Dr. Linda Roan, and I grew up in Northeast Wichita. I've lived in and out of the city for the last 20 years. And virtually my job has been to be a curriculum and instruction professor and teach about race relations. Oftentimes working with 80% teachers in classrooms who are going to be sent out in schools to work with students who are ethnically and racially and linguistically diverse. And that is very tough because even though these teachers are sincere, they're sincerely wrong in their approach to these children because they don't know how to effectively teach them. That's no fault of their own. This is not an indictment on these teachers. We're not going to paint everybody with one brush. We don't ball up our fists and start spitting at them out. But here's the thing. When we start thinking about training, I'm not so sure they leave their teacher education programs with the training that is necessary to really effectively teach these children. This is what I mean. It's one thing to have heroes, sheroes, food, fun, and festival type education. It's another thing to have an education that says, let's ask some serious questions about why the disenfranchised groups today continue to be angry and hostile and distrusting of the people who don't look like them. We have to address that. There's lots of scholarship. I've been responsible for writing grants and putting some of that scholarship out there myself, but I'm not interested in sitting in an ivory tower drinking lattes and just talking about it. I, too, am interested in what's going on in the community. But I believe it starts at a gut level. Hi, Pastor Dotson. He told us on Sunday, he said, listen, folks, we have to do some things in the community. He said, first of all, we're going to start with accountability, and I believe that's important. I believe our young boys do need mentors. And yes, it starts with fathers. It starts with grandfathers, uncles, brother-in-laws, and other men who can make themselves available. Wait, ladies, we are not off the hook. Because the literature tells us that emotionally healthy boys have to hear from not only adult men, but women as well.
What we're going to do, Trump, we're watching our time, watching you. We're going to survey the panel. Any discussion from the panel that you want to lift up, something that you hear, something that you want to comment on or talk to, wave your hand at.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Doctor.
What about the radio station?
All good? Okay, we got a panel.
I just want to reiterate my point from earlier and what she just said, because, you know, in the community, the young people see what's going on, and they see what's going on to their uncles and their parents, and being locked up, being taken away. And so we are still creating a generation that has a high mistrust for authority, and they're going to grow up and be the majority. And so that's what they're learning right now, it's not going to be better off in the future. We need to stop this right now. We need to really, someone used the word respect earlier, and I really like that because sometimes you do feel like you're getting disrespected by the officer or by another person, by the authority stuff. And so there needs to be that respect among peers. I know I've been called out a couple times to de-escalate a situation with officers and residents. And basically, it was this big lack of respect for another one. And I've had to say, you know, just because there's a young black person, that doesn't mean he's a drug dealer. A young brown person doesn't mean he's a gang member. You know, a Hispanic man working construction doesn't mean he's an immigrant. So we can have that mutual respect for each other, work with each other. So, and that's what we need to get back to. That's what we need to get back to.
Did you want anything from the cards? Patrick cards? Was it here now and then here? Oh, sorry. Yes, Pastor, I'm sorry.
In Ferguson, there was a 63% of that community is African American. representation on all throughout there was less than 0.1% on one of the things, when we talk about education, there is a civic education that we have to begin to talk to our kids about how, again, it is about, I'm going to keep on saying about voting. To put our folk in, and it changes how funding comes to schools, it changes who is on juries, it changes a variety of different things that the people that we elect and put in office. And we have to do we have to teach our children and teach our community something different. We usually see a politician and we say, we like that politician, I'm gonna vote for him. One of the things, or her, one of the things we need to do now is say, these are the issues that are concerning us. And we need to make our politicians vote and deal with our issues. When you deal with our issues, then we'll vote for you. But we're not just gonna vote for you because you come and you're around every 4 years. So there's a lot of education, as you said, that needs to happen. One of the things that we can educate, we need, and we've got it, we need a radio station, a media to be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And every day we are bombarded with messages that we're not any good. We're bombarded with messages that we need to be able to take over the airways. We got a chance to do it, and we do it.
One, two, three, four. Go number 2.
Hello, my name is Chester Selman. I'm with the Speak Out Kansas of Wichita. And for the last 7 or 8 years, we've been working on policemen wearing body cams. We've had meetings with the city manager. We had Terry Moses come out to our building at 2201 East 13th Street. She gave us a demonstration on what the camera was about, how they put them on. They can clip on to their eyeglasses. They can wear them on their lapel. She even went into how much they cost. This was probably 5 years ago. And we put out flyers, asked people to come and support this idea. No one showed up. Probably 20, 25 people. I can't blame this police department because they came and they put on the display about the cam. And but now we're still fighting this same issue. And the one thing I want to say, I was raised by my father. I didn't say whether it was cost or whether it was free, but I'll. If we continue to do the same thing the same way, we can't expect any different results. So let's take this opportunity, come together, and start thinking about what we as a people and as a community, especially in Northeast Wichita, what can we do positive that we're going to be financially stable.
2 minutes. I actually gave you more time, so.
Just one thing here. If we look at 21st Street, we go west of Broadway and look at what we see. Go east of Broadway and look at what we see. I'm not blaming the people on the west. I'm not blaming them at all. I'm blaming the ones on the east side. But the thing of it is, we need the same assistance, the same support from city administrators as any other part of the city. We will do it just as good or better than any other part of the city if we get the same support as any other part of the city gets.
Thank you.
My name is Tia Butler, and I'm here on behalf of my family, who was with the sisters, the mother, the cousins, brothers, nieces, and nephews who did watch my cousin Icarus Randolph get shot, fatally shot 4 times by the police on the 4th of July. His mother watched him die. His sister, which was her birthday, watched her die. His nieces and nephews, which were 4, 7, and 13 years old, watched him die. So what I want to ask the chief of police is, what is the protocol when a war veteran who has came back from Iraq, who's probably had to commit murder or whatever, we can't handle, he has a mental illness. What is the protocol when you have to call for a crisis situation? I want to know why my auntie had to watch her son die that day. Was there anything that we could have done besides judge him for, oh, he's a crazy, oh, he's suicidal, or what is it that, what is the protocol for handling what is a response when you handle a call from somebody that has a mental illness, that has PTSD, just anything? If anything is wrong with them, what do you do besides kill them? Because people on that list that have been murdered, a few of them, I guess the reports will say, are suicidal. So y'all went on here and finished off the job? Is that what you know what I'm saying? They suicidal, we're calling you to get the help, but yet you want to go ahead and just shoot them dead in front of their family. My auntie and my cousins watched that. My little nieces and nephews, they ain't never going to be right growing up in Wichita, Kansas. And what about the 13-year-old young man that watched his uncle, who was his mentor, get fatally killed? How is he going to then, what would be the protocol to handle him? That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Deputy. And let me, that was actually a question that kind of speaks to that. Can I add on to that? And that is, has the police department considered a mental health unit that can deal specifically with folks who have mental illness?
When you have someone call
Well, we got the question.
mental illness, I would like for you to chief, and also police chief, you resigned at a hot time here in the city. My bad. Well, you came in at a hot time.
Okay. I'm sorry, this for point of clarification, this is not Chief Williams. This is Deputy Chief Nelson Mosley.
Thank you. Well, again, earlier I said, we got into the conversation about the shootings, and they're unfortunate. You're asking me about a protocol in response, and at the end of the day, we have to go to any call with the information we have at hand. Once we get there, we try to get on the scene and also evaluate the information by talking to people and try to figure out, because I can't give you a protocol because each call is different.
Okay, so wait a minute. Ma'am.
Okay, again, she asked me for a specific protocol
How to deal with a mentally ill person? You gotta go out.
like I said earlier about the protocol, each case is different. And for this case, I can't make comments. We make initial comments on the case. In particular, as far as this case, I can't do it. It's still in being looked at.
Sister Allen, can I? No, well, here's, let me, can I? Okay, we're trying to, now, listen.
Now, we do have officers trained in critical incidents training. But again, if you have the policy, you have that, we do have. I don't have the number of our officers trained. I can get that for you.
Wouldn't you agree that more times than not, when police are involved in a situation, any call, more times than not, there will be a mental issue, drugs involved. There's usually, when police become involved, that's usually the case. So wouldn't you agree, everybody need that training and not a handful of people? That don't even make sense.
Just real quickly, we just produced.
Let's keep the order as well.
We just produced a report for Councilmember Williams, I believe, that had asked regarding what we do for mental health issues. And all of our new recruits, we've added time at our academy so that there can be a mental health training unit. So all of our new recruits are going through that, and we're in the process of training all of our officers, but it's in a more detailed way so that they actually will receive certification in how to deal with mental health issues in the community. Because I think we all recognize it is a growing problem and that it has to be addressed. And appropriately.
And what we will do as the team that's putting this together, hear you loud and clear. So as we're talking about solutions, making sure that this training is taking place and that people know about that number that you're talking about when it comes to dealing with those who are mentally ill. We're going to go to this person here.
Can I please, just to finish it off?
You 2 hours, already 2 minutes. Wait, Patrick.
I hold my children to a standard of excellence. I expect the same thing from you. My child, my son, is not your stereotype. My son is not your stereotype. Their brother, their uncle was not your stereotype. And we have to change the mindset of the people that we hire to govern our community. I'm gonna go real quick and then I'm gonna be done with it because I want to respect everybody else that's waiting. But what I want to say is it goes back to community. It is harder to kill a child that you watch grow up. It is harder to kill a child that you know his story. It is harder to beat up on a person that you know their parents. Stop allowing stereotypes to dictate the way that you police our communities and learn us and respect our communities. That's it.
I see you, but I'm looking at our time. We are at 8:20. We are going to, I'm going to allow, I believe, this last lady right here. And then what I'm going to ask of you, we need next steps because we're here. And I really hate this because I don't want to keep you here all day. This was, as you can see, this is very important.
We're here. We're here.
Okay, this is what I'll do for you. This is what we'll do for you.
Let me say this, and we are here, and part of what we want to make sure happens is that we get concrete, tangible steps coming out of this process so that we don't have to be here again in this way. So we want to make sure concrete things are happening. In order for that to happen, there's some procedural things that need to take place as we're closing out tonight. So if you are in line, if you can write a question down, we'll make sure that question gets to the appropriate person and we can respond accordingly. Okay? So we're going to go one person per line. Right here.
My name is Brandon Johnson. I am a father of 2 kids. The theme up here today was accountability, so I'm here for accountability. I voted for some people on this council. I really respect some people on this council and the city manager. But I keep hearing about, Reverend Eccles said back in the 90s, we talked about cameras. Where are they at? We passed budgets, $500 million, this new one, $577 million, this new sales tax proposal, $397 million. Why can we not get our cameras? The other thing, as we also talk about meetings, we are here tonight, we've been here at meetings, when are the policies going to change? We keep talking about the same things. When is that going to happen? When are we really going to start looking at what these officers are doing? There was a video posted on Facebook today, racial profiling at Quick Trip. When are we really going to start reviewing those things? When is the action going to happen? These meetings are great. I will be at every meeting we have, but I've been at a lot of meetings. I've been working in the community since 2005. I have not seen the change that we are talking about. And I'm really tired of waiting for the change. So like Reverend Rubin said, we do need to vote and we need to make sure these people are held accountable, but we're here tonight for accountability and I'm not seeing the change. So when are we going to see it?
Nothing ever changes.
place where we didn't hear any commitment to change. We haven't heard any commitment to change. We heard them say they're gonna work on it, they're gonna talk about it, they're gonna look at it. All we want is some acknowledgement. I'm being respectful, but we just need some acknowledgement that we got a problem and that we're going to change. Not gonna talk about it anymore, but we're going to do it. I mean, it's your will to do it. Is there a will to do it?
Mr. Mayor,
Is your will to do it?
Mr. Mayor.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go back to the city council and work with the city manager, because I know that you say purchasing the cameras costs X amount of dollars, but there's a little bit more to it than that. You know, because the next thing you say, well, the tape disappeared, or you didn't maintain this various different information. So we have to figure out what that total dollar figure is.
You told
You tracking
me to
with
raise
me?
a whole
Sir,
fundraiser.
just relax.
You told me in a city council meeting
Sir.
that I could hold a fundraiser to get cameras.
Sir, relax. Mr. Brand, Mr. Johnson is using his 2 minutes, and I'm going to speak on Mr. Johnson, answer his question. I'm going to go back to the city council, and the city manager's going to go do the research, and we're going to get some actual dollar figures and see if we can just, by the end of the year, that we completely man up every patrol officer that we have with cameras. So that is no longer
First step. Question here, this is how we do a question here, and then we're coming back. Young person, this young lady right here, we're gonna end with this lady right here. God bless you, we have first steps. If you need to stay and talk to one another more, you can. And I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, but we have a serious storm approaching us. If you got your cell phone, look for yourself. So you don't think I'm just making this up. But if you're trying to get home, this is a good time. Okay, right here, sir. Okay, order. And you.
Yeah, one question, folks. You got a panel, a partial panel.
If you're leaving, please leave quietly. Please leave.